Greetings, viewers! Tie here, bringing you some of my Foxy thoughts. So, fun bit of trivia. I made a thumbnail for this video after the first trailer for Sword and Shield went out. I didn't want to go ahead and do anything right away, in case I made some false assumptions or serious mistakes, but I think I'm going to do that anyway. But the important thing is, I'll try to avoid them and expect to be corrected where I go for this video in the future. I got the game for Christmas in 2019, and intended to start this video after I'd played it, but then the expansion passes were announced, and I told myself, if you do this video, you are going to play every part of this game so you can cover it. I'll try not to repeat too much of what others have already said, but I can't make any promises. The game takes place in the Gala region, which is based on the United Kingdom of Great Britain. Young new trainers can compete in what is known as the Gym Challenge, which is basically the Pokemon League in previous games 1 through 6. The main difference in Galar is the league is a regional sporting event, where those who undertake it and manage to make it to Wyndon City with all 8 gym badges will compete against one another, as well as several gym leaders for the chance to take on regional champion Leon. You also need to be sponsored by someone apparently, or at least I assume that's the case, given we have 3 examples of someone who is sponsored by people who are connected to the league in this game. This feels far more organic than the game's protagonist participating in the Pokemon League because the professor of that region told them to do so, or the game just has you do it. I don't know, looking back on it, it actually kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The only time the Pokemon League actually plays a role in the game's story was with Gen 5. Most people take issue with how there's no Elite Four in Galar, but I feel it feels more like a legit competition. Rather than just shove the challenge 4 random characters, you face people you've battled previously. So when the game starts, well, sort of starts, you gotta go through the whole intro and whatnot. You meet your neighbor and Silver Point rival Hop, who is the younger brother of the regional champion Leon, on the day you're both to receive your first ever Pokemon, and Leon is visiting. Although Hop already has inferior shape, so a Woodoo batters down the gate that keeps all the domestic Pokemon from wandering off into the slumbering wild, a forest that has an uneasy feel that outsiders don't belong. Fearing that the Woodoo might be attacked by wild Pokemon, Hop and the player enter the forest and encounter the boss legendaries for the game. Zacian if you're playing Sword, Zamazenta if you're playing Shield. You can't beat the mysterious Pokemon, and it seemingly knocks you and Hop out, and you're found by Leon, who also managed to recover the runaway Woodoo. After taking you both home, it's time to choose your first Pokemon. And here's one of the first things I can agree with that people have against the game. It's that Hop always chooses the Pokemon type that is weak to your starter. Although now that I'm saying it out loud, this was also an issue in Gen 7, wasn't it? You just can't blame Gen 8 for everything. The next day you travel to Wedge Burst, where you meet Professor Magnolia and her granddaughter Sonia. While Magnolia does give you a Pokedex, she really doesn't play that much more of a role outside her introduction here. And Sonia will frequently appear throughout the game, and even then, her function is to exposit lore about an event called the Darkest Day, which nearly destroyed all of Galar until the arrival of Twin Kings vanquished the threat. Most people don't care that this seems to be all Sonia really does, and I can understand to a point, since you're just really waiting around for the boss legendaries to show up and play more of a role in the game. I, however, feel this exposition was better done. There was an X and Y, where the game just casually mention a Pokemon that grants life or can bring destruction, and had Team Flare in possession of that Pokemon. Somehow. Along your journey, you encounter rivals, Bede and Marnie. Out of the 2, Bede feels like he's the one who deserves to be called a rival, since during each encounter with him, he'll talk about how he's a superior trainer due to being sponsored by Chairman Rose of the Pokemon League. Despite how easy it is to beat him, since his team comprises entirely of Mono Psychic types, and you would have likely acquired at least 1 Bug type and 2 Dark types by the time you encounter him. It's only until Stone'side that his undeserved ego takes a serious blow after Chairman Rose disqualifies him from competing due to causing intentional damage to a national landmark. But even then, it doesn't feel quite satisfactory somehow. Marnie, on the other hand, while she also battles you at different points in the game, I really don't get the feeling that she's doing it to prove anything, like Copper Bead whenever they battle you. She battles you to see how strong a trainer you are. The only time she battles you with the intention of beating you, at least from my perspective that's how it felt, is at the league tournament. And speaking of Marnie, I suppose we should now talk about Sword and Shield's evil team. Team Yell are based on the punk trend that started in Britain, and are another issue that people have with the games, since they feel like an even lamer version of Team Skull. I can see what people mean, since their business really have to harass anyone or steal anything, and really their only purpose is to keep you from progressing further in the game, until you be in whatever gym of whatever town you happen to be in. They want Marty to become the regional champion, because, spoilers, Marty's older brother Piers is both the leader of Team Skull and the gym leader of Spikemouth City. There's no indication that Piers told Team Yell to actively interfere with the gym challenge, but he also didn't reprimand the grunts, even though he knew they shut down the whole city to prevent others from challenging him. While Piers may have his fans, I consider him a bit too pessimistic for my liking, and even though Team Yell has two of my favorite Pokemon families in the whole generation, they're far from my favorite group in the franchise. After finally reaching Wyndon in the opening ceremonies, it seems that Chairman Rose is happy on meeting him at Rose Tower, and his sitting behind Ming's secretary, Oleana, I hope I'm saying that name right, is determined not to let you interfere, recruiting several members of the Macrocosmos company to stand in your way before battling you herself. In a cutscene, we're given exposition that Chairman Rose is concerned that the gallery gym will run out of energy that keeps it running 1,000 years, and that something must be done immediately, even if it means delaying the tournament. Leon refuses to postpone the tournament, and this makes Rose go full-on villain of the game and unleashes the Pokemon Eternatus, which was the cause behind the darkest day during the tournament.
Excuse me, what?
You know, as formulaic as the game may have been so far with the arbitrary rivals and evil team, it's here where I find myself increasingly sad at the turn of events as I script and record this. I almost want to say that the writers for this game wanted another red herring thing like we did with Sun and Moon, like how Team Skull was for the Aether Foundation, but no, that doesn't feel appropriate now that I record this, since unlike Team Skull, Team Yell was never really much of a threat. Honestly, this just feels like one big... like the writers just wanted one final villain character, and decided to use Chairman Rose and his company. I mean, it's probably not too much of a surprise. A lot of people did think that Rose was going to be the final antagonist you have to battle in the game. Just, the execution feels really wrong. Eternatus also feels like another poorly executed third legendary, similar to Zygarde and Necrozma. Like, I know it has something to do with the lore of Galar, and I guess it makes some kind of sense for a Pokemon to be behind the darkest day, but again, I just don't... We don't know how Rose knew about Eternatus, how Macrocosmo managed to get a hold of it while it was sealed away, and Rose's belief that the Pokemon that almost destroyed the Galar region would be its salvation is pants on head stupid, no matter if it's in the game or in the anime. Despite Leon's attempt to capture Eternatus, the monster breaks out its Pokeball. It's only by returning to the slumbering Weald and obtaining an ancient sword and shield that summons Zacian and Zamazenta that Eternatus is defeated. Rose willingly turns himself in, and the tournament resumes with you becoming the champion. If you thought that was all, there's the post-game. This pair of brothers with One Piece hair, named Swordward and Shieldbert, show up out of nowhere, claim to be the descendants of the Twin Kings, and take such offense to a book written by Sonya after the events of the main game. They go around causing chaos in several gyms, which the player, Hop, and Piers must put an end to. I, like many, do not care for the post-game, and I think it's mainly because I find Swordward and Shieldbert to be insufferable. They're the kind of people who use their celebrity status to justify their behavior and get away with anything they want. I get they were written to be insufferable, but that will just make you rush through the post-game as fast as possible so you won't have to deal with them anymore. Thankfully, the DLC for the Isle of Armor and the Ground Tundra are more palatable. It starts with you arriving at the Wedgehurst Air Taxi Station, where you will meet either Claire or Avery, depending on which game you are playing, battle/capture a Galarian Slowpoke, and take an air taxi to the Isle of Armor. The main focus here is a dojo run by Master Mustard, who was the original champion before Leon. In order to be accepted as a student of his, you need to accomplish 3 tasks, like catching 3 speedy Slowpoke, or locating a clump of mushrooms that can help Pokemon Gigantamax. You're also rewarded with a little fighting-type Pokemon called Kubfu, which you must build a bond with before taking it to either the Tower of Waters or the Tower of Darkness. Once in the tower, you'll have to face off against several trainers, and if you make it to the top, you'll battle Mustard. If you pass his test, you'll be presented with a scroll that will cause Kubfu to evolve into a powerhouse when read. Honestly, I prefer Kubfu to its evolved form Urshifu. The idea of a little cub getting all kinds of butt just appeals to me more. For the second part of the DLC, you travel down south to the Ground Tundra, which is treated more like a tourist destination than the tropical island. At least that's the vibe given off by Peony, who, spoilers, is Rose's brother. Peony has brought his daughter Nia for a little parent-child bonding, only for Nia to dish her father towards the start of the DLC, and Peony instead latches onto you. The first arc of the DLC is you arrive in the town of Freezington, where you encounter the mystical Pokemon Calyrex, which is worshipped by the townspeople as a deity. Unfortunately, Calyrex has lost most of its power due to people losing belief in it, and Calyrex asks you, via the position of Peony, to find out why. To be honest, I didn't care for this part of the DLC. It was just a whole bunch of going back and forth, asking people around Freezington if they know anything about Calyrex, and searching for anything that can advance the plot. Though to be fair, it's probably because Freezington is so small that contributes to this feeling of repetitiveness. In the end, it turns out that Calyrex had a steed, the Ghost-type Spectrier, or the Ice-type Glastrier, depending on what type of carrot it likes to eat, and Calyrex needs your help to bond with it again. Next, you encounter Galarian versions of the 3 legendary birds, Zapdos, Moltres, and Articuno, who all must be hella fast, since after the encounter, Zapdos has run all the way to the wild area outside Hammerlock, Moltres has flown all the way to the Isle of Armor, and Articuno is hanging out in more frigid parts of the tundra. You need to chase down each bird, capture it, and bring it back to Peony. Oh goody, just what everyone wanted, the roaming legendary feature to come back. Isn't that nice? After all that, you're tasked with finding the temples of the Titan Pokemon, Regirock, Registea, and Regice. Each temple has a specific puzzle that needs to be solved. Very similar to how encountering these Pokemon worked in Gen 3, only here there's no Braille to translate, and the tools to unlock the temples vary. There's also a 4th Titan, the Electric-type Regieleki, or the Dragon-type Regidrago. Like with Glastrier and Spectrier, you can only choose one, so best think over which Pokemon you want to add to your collection. In the final part of the DLC, Leon calls you back to Winden to announce that he is starting an event called the 11-Star Tournament, where you can team up with characters you've met during the game for double battles. And that appears to be all she wrote. To be honest, I liked some aspects of the game's story. I liked the world building in regards to the Darkest Day, Calyrex's connection to Freezington, and felt the methods through which you unlock each Titan's temple was pretty clever. The fact that the Pokemon League in this generation is treated as a big event, and the sponsorship rather than just randomly running around collecting badges, also works in my opinion, and I'm hoping that sticks around. I will admit though, there's quite a lot of talk and very little show. Oleana and Rose have very poor reasons to become last-minute antagonists, and it feels like characters like Barney weren't as developed as they could have been, or were discarded too quickly like Bede, and some other issues that hold the story back from being as great as the developers may have intended. All that aside, I still enjoyed my playthrough of the game. I've already said my opinion on some of the characters, but I'll go over a few here. Hop has gotten quite a bit of flack for various reasons, and the first is the weakest. He's just how from the previous game. What? They share a single animation. Yeah, like I said, flimsy reasoning. That doesn't make them the same character, just means the animation was reused. People also like to say that their designs are too similar. The only thing they have in common is that they're both dark-skinned, and even then the hues are different. You can't just look at their skin color and say they're the same, and actually expect that to be a valid criticism. You also have to take their personalities and relations into account. Yes, they're both energetic and relate to powerful trainers, but even that's different. Hao is the grandson of Hala, who is the kahuna of Man Island, while Hop is the little brother of Leon, Galar's greatest champion. While Hop has aspirations to become a powerful trainer, and even jokes about surpassing his big brother a few times, Hao never seems to have such a goal, and is more focused on having a good time, even if he isn't that powerful of a trainer. I'm not gonna deny that Hop can come off as a flat character in some of his dialogue, but I also feel that he goes through a mild depression after losing a battle of Bede. That's the start of his development. He begins to realize that just because he's the champion's brother, that automatically doesn't make him an unbeatable trainer, and he has to get stronger on his own merits, rather than just assume he's destined to become the next champion. Speaking of Leon, he has to be my least favorite regional champion. He's a nice guy and everything, but he's also just kind of there for the most part. Yeah, he gives you the Pokemon you can choose for your starter and sponsors you so you can compete in the gym challenge, but it doesn't feel like it does much more beyond that to me. Regional champions like Alder are often a sage mentor, or have a faux mystique to them like Cynthia, but Leon is just a combination of a sports star and public hero to the people of Galar. If something bad happens, Leon will rush to the rescue, and then solve everything off screen. At one point, the Dynamax Berserker is running amok, and rather than possibly letting the player team up with Leon against it, Leon's defeated it all by himself off screen. Of course, this just could be a fault with the writing and not Leon himself as a character. On the brighter side of things, Leon is very social and enjoys his role, not because of ego, but because he wants to inspire people, and loves putting on as great a show as possible during battle. Sonia is a pretty redhead.
Good night, everybody.
Okay, there's more her than that, considering she is the assistant to her grandmother, who's the regional professor. For one, she has a passion for uncovering mysteries. I think the greatest flaw of Sonia is the game tends to treat her as exposition fairy for the darkest day, but something about the dialogue just makes it feel like she's simultaneously learning along with you when she already knows the story of Galar. Or maybe I'm just dumb and I don't understand the dialogue she was given. Now I understand the gym leaders have gained a number of fans, and their trainer cards say quite a bit about them, but really only 3 managed to stand out to me. The first would be Opal, the 88-year-old granny who honestly reminds me of sarcastic lady mentors like Cologne from Ramen 1/2 or Genkai from Yu Yu Hakusho. She mysteriously pops up a few times after the player defeats Kabu to comment on events that happen around her before going on her merry little way. Then you find out she's the gym leader of the... I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that. She's the leader of the fairy-type gym, and looking for a successor. The standards she deems necessary to become the next gym leader are a sharp mind, and apparently to wear pink clothing if her finally setting on Bede is any indication. Her dialogue can be pretty entertaining if you're in the right mood for it, and she's very observant when it comes to other characters. I'm guessing that Bede was simply used by Oyana to collect wishing stars with the chairman. I look forward to her depiction in the anime. Here's the long-awaited Dark-type gym leader. I have mixed feelings towards him. On the one hand, he does absolutely nothing to improve the condition of Spikemuth, and his animations and dialogue cause him to come off as either pessimistic or a stereotypical emo. On the other hand, he clearly cares a great deal for his sister Marnie, voicing concern for her during the post-game, and seems to consider her a worthy successor as gym leader of their hometown. There's also something else I'd kind of like to work in here, but I feel it would be better placed somewhere else. Unlike other gym leaders in Galar, Piers is unable to Dynamax his Pokemon due to the fact that Spikemuth wasn't built on a hotspot, thus his Pokemon can't benefit from the energies. That would cause them to grow in size and power. Not that that really matters to Piers, since he has a dislike for Dynamaxing, and wishes that people could see how great battles are without it. Rayhan Leon's primary rival and the shining star of Hammerlock City. Unquestionably the most strategic of all team leaders, since while he specializes in dragon types, he doesn't use just dragon Pokemon on his team. He has Pokemon that can use weather conditions to harm the opponents and heal themselves, like Abomasnow's Snow Warning, a Torkoal with Drought that will give it immediate access to Solar Beam, counteract water types, and a Gigalith and Sandaconda that can use sandstorms. Rayhan is also a very passionate battler, relishing in pulling off a good weather combination, and roars about how he'll tear you down. And his team will certainly pose a threat even if you're prepared for them. While he's Leon's rival and his first bit of dialogue is how he'll take him down, Rayhan has a great deal of respect for Leon and trusts his judgment in the trainers he chooses to sponsor.
People, calm down!
Oh, this is going to be fun. The Pokemon franchise has never been a stranger to controversy, and honestly, while I don't think it's as bad as the Porygon controversy, yeah, Gen 8 is still had pretty bad. Yes, I'm aware that GameFreak had to cut the NationalDex from the game, meaning we'd get less than half of our favorite Pokemon. No, I don't care, and if I did back then, it was because I didn't know which Pokemon would be cut. I actually fell out of the gotta catch them all mentality while playing Emerald because it felt like a lot more work than necessary to me. Am I saying that people weren't right to be a tad upset? No. I can understand why people were turned off from Sword and Shield due to the Pokedex being cut, but really, that's something that should have just lasted a week, 2 at most, not months on end, and certainly not something that should have divided the community. Hashtag bring back the NationalDex was dumb, and something that got completely out of control. How out of control? People had in their heads as they spammed the game developers, it would make them fix everything. Sort of like how Sonic fans spammed Paramount because they hated the design of Sonic for his first ever live action movie. They spammed this hashtag on personal posts from developers, including wedding pictures, and one person even made up accusations that Junichi Matsuda was a rapist. Granted, even the BBN crowd thought this was crossing a line, and not everyone went to such extremes, but these actions caused those who were part of BBN to be viewed as entitled. This is something I've also been wondering for like 2 years. The reason I look forward to getting the NationalDex in the game was because it mean I could transfer Pokemon from previous generations into the game I was currently playing. And there were methods of doing that between a DS and a 3DS. That's why Pokebank was created. But how would you transfer Pokemon from a 3DS to a gaming console that seems completely incompatible with it? If there's a method to do that, I'd like to see it because I've yet to find one. I'm also gonna ask, what exactly would having added NationalDex to the game would have added to the game really? Like, if you think about it, getting the NationalDex in previous games was always sort of an afterthought. In the first Black and White game, you couldn't even get previous Pokemon until you beat the game. Now, this isn't the only issue I've had with Sword and Shield, but we'll get there. I've also heard that people were mad that games wouldn't have Mega Evolutions or Z moves. Yeah, okay, to be fair, you could possibly have Mega Evolutions back in the games, but you would have to figure out a way to work them in. And Z moves have been said to be a thing exclusive to Alola, since, you know, it's part of the culture of the Alolan people. Just having them put in Gen 8, seemingly because it was expected, really wouldn't work because Galar is based on the UK and Alola is based on Hawaii. It's the same feeling I have about Colress just showing up in Sun and Moon to give the player every drive meant for Genesect, or being given the Keystones and Megastones in the Let's Go games. These things really aren't for any narrative reason that I can see, but we're just adding them for the sake of being there. I'd rather have Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing because they actually have something to do with the culture of Galar than have Mega Evolution and Z moves forced in, despite them having no significance to the game. Ever since word of cut content was made public, people just really started to shit on Sword and Shield before the games even came out. And videos were made by people who either wanted to get views and then got indignant when people called them out for their clickbaiting, or people who already built their YouTube careers on being contrarians.
All you ever do is complain. You never try to make things better.
Look, I'm not saying that these games didn't deserve actual criticism, but then you get to the point where people who are already disgruntled with Game Freak would just crap all over the company, and anyone who dare say they still appreciate everything Game Freak has already done, calling them mindless shills, dividing the community even further. I can honestly think of only 2 people who made neutral videos about all this, and I'll be linking them in the description below. The most vocal detractor of Sword and Shield has been Distant Kingdom, whose main issue has been, I'm gonna be 100% honest here. I'm not an artist or animator, so I may be the least qualified to voice any criticisms in this particular department. That said, I'll try my best where I can. In terms of 3D graphics, this is probably the 3rd best looking Pokemon game in the franchise, next to Pokken and Let's Go. The backgrounds are nicely detailed, and the human models are actually decently proportioned. No more awkward chewiness with jagged frames. The walking and running animations for characters look semi-natural, but that's an opinion I have whenever I see characters walk/run in 3D games. And yeah, that's all the positive criticisms I have. Now for one of the other reasons people like to bash this game. Okay, I'll admit that some of the attack animations are just flat out lazy. Really? We're still just hopping up and down for certain attacks? An aspect praised about Pokemon Battle Revolution was the illusion that Pokemon would actually physically interact while attacking. But in the Game Freak games, it feels like they're content to have the Pokemon physically interact as little as possible. Post-editing night here, so I was gonna talk about the following Pokemon feature, but while I was putting all this together, I found I really couldn't find any footage that went along with my point. So we're just gonna skip all that.
Every new Pokemon in this game is British!
Hey, finally talking about Pokemon in this Pokemon video. Pretty much every new Pokemon is based on a piece of lore and culture. The Hatana and Impidimp lines, based on witches and fey creatures, Squirrel and Greedent, the Grey Squirrel, which is native to the UK, and the Red Squirrel, which is basically an invasive species. Galarian Weezing is based on Smoke Billowing factories, and the men who owned them with top hats and facial hair. And then there's Ice-Cube, don't know if I pronounced that right yet, which was based on the report of a penguin just floating in the British waters on an ice floe. The region's fossil Pokemon are based on how UK archaeologists would just slap bones together that, years later, were discovered to belong to different species. I may do a video on my favorite Pokemon of this generation, so look forward to that. So these are criticisms I have towards the game that I really couldn't think where else to put them. The first thing I wanted to discuss when I was playing the game was the gyms. Like games 1 through 6, Sword and Shield have a system where the challengers need to participate in puzzles in order to challenge the gym leader. For the most part, most of the challenges, which are called gym missions, are pretty okay. Hurting Wooloo and solving a water puzzle can take a great deal of your time, but I can't say I disliked doing them. The first 3 gyms are perfectly fine, but then we get to Stone's gym. It's one of 2 gyms that is the same layout, but differs depending on which game you're playing. In Sword, Stoneside's gym is a fighting type gym, and for Shield, it's a ghost type gym. When you take the challenge, you're pushed around by either boxing gloves or spoopy clawed hands while riding in a cup seat, and the key to solving this puzzle is speed and leaning your seat in the direction you need to go to solve the puzzle. And I hated having to do this. I don't know if it was me or the Switch's controls, but no matter how hard I tried or how many times I tried, I just got stuck on the 2nd and 3rd stages of this mission and had to have someone else help me through them. Ironically, the gym I expected to piss me off but didn't was in Sirchester, which in Sword is a rock type gym, and in Shield is an ice type gym. I think it's safe to say that I am not the only person who hates ice levels. Always slipping around and only being stopped when you bump into something. These are levels that can take up to a half hour of your time at best. And in Pokemon games, they are particularly frustrating. Especially in the gyms. That doesn't happen in Gen 8, however. Here, you're given a pair of dowsing rods called trap detectors, and have to navigate your way around pit traps. Even if you fall in, the traps aren't reset, and you can easily avoid them on your next try. I did take issue with the Dex cut when it was first announced, but that was only like a few minutes at most. What I don't think I'll ever be able to get over though, is some of the Pokemon that were cut, especially when they would have been perfectly suited for Galar. Really? You're going to advertise an electric Pokemon based on the Corgi, which can be used as sheepdogs, but not include Mareep into the NationalDex? Instead, we get this bland normal type and the walking soccer ball that he rolls into. Another Pokemon cut from the Dex was the Snubbull line. Why? They're based on bulldogs, which originated in the UK. And Snubbull are considered to be a favorite pet of women in the Pokemon world. They're fairy-type Pokemon, so they'd have been perfect with the fairy-type gym. Instead, GameFreak put them running around wild and Alola because reasons. Then there's a Furfrou, a Pokemon which has the gimmick of having different appearances based on what haircut it gets. It's clearly a show dog, and dog shows come from the UK. And then there's Swanna. Why isn't Swanna here? Swans are in the UK and are associated with Queen Elizabeth. Hell, the royal family somehow owns every swan in the country. Don't know how that works. These are missed opportunities, Game Freak, and I will never forgive you for them. Lastly, and this is a sentiment shared by many, I'm disappointed there's no voice acting in this game. I personally feel the main reason this is an issue is in regard to Piers, the guy who is basically a rock singer, yet with every single character mute, it just looks like he's mouthing the lyrics to a song when he's introduced, and that's really awkward. It's also a missed opportunity to play around with his character. You can have him seem like a pessimist when he's talking, but give him a more confident voice while singing in his mic during battle. It shows that he's more comfortable performing than in regular conversation. Aside from Detective Pikachu, Pokemon games have never had voice acting when they jump to 3D. And I can't for the life of me figure out why. Fire Emblem, Yokai Watch, Danganronpa, Persona, all these games have voice acting in them, and they've all been on the same consoles as Pokemon. Even Digimon Cyber Sleuth has voice acting, and those games aren't even dubbed. Now, you don't necessarily need voice acting to get a feel of a character's personality. I feel giving them voices would give them a bit more dimension, and not doing that with Pokemon just makes the characters feel a little flat and easy to overlook. And I think that's all I have to talk about. I'm not gonna say these games are perfect, because really they aren't. But I also don't think these games are the stain of the franchise that people want to make them out to be and shame others for enjoying. Not gonna deny that Sword and Shield is flawed, but it isn't broken or unplayable. Game Freak just really needs to move away from the stagnancy it's found itself in, and I hope they do that in the future. There are apparently going to be Gen 4 remakes coming out, so I guess only time will tell. This is not Highlight saying thanks for letting me share my thoughts. Please share yours with me.